James Caldwell stood at the entrance of Caldwell Enterprises, his own company, dressed in tattered clothes. His face was smudged with dirt, his beard unkempt, and his once polished shoes were replaced with old sneakers barely holding together. To the world, he looked like just another homeless man. But in reality, he was the CEO of this very company, a self-made billionaire who had decided to go undercover to see how his employees truly treated those in need. James had spent years building his company from the ground up, but as it grew, he began hearing disturbing stories. Reports of employees mistreating lower-ranked staff, security escorting the less fortunate away from the building without a second thought, and executives who had become cold and arrogant. He wanted to see the truth for himself, without the polished facade his team always put up in front of him. So, he devised a plan to become invisible among them. A harsh reality the moment James stepped inside the building. He was met with harsh glares from the receptionist. A young woman with a perfectly pressed suit and a fake smile plastered on her face looked at him with disgust. "Sir, you can't be in here," she said curtly. "Please." James spoke softly, lowering his head to play the part. "I just need a little help. Maybe some food." The woman scoffed. "This is a corporate office, not a charity. Leave before I call security." James sighed and moved further inside, trying to see if anyone had a different attitude. He spotted one of his senior executives, Mr. Fletcher, whom he had once mentored. James approached him, hoping for kindness. "Sir, could you spare some change?" "I haven't eaten since yesterday," James pleaded. Mr. Fletcher wrinkled his nose in disgust. "Get a job, you filthy bum," he spat. "People like you are a burden to society." The word stung. James had expected some level of disregard, but this outright humiliation was worse than he imagined. Still, he pushed forward. He made his way to the company cafeteria, where he saw a janitor, an elderly man named Robert, who had been with the company for decades. James had always admired his dedication. "Sir," James whispered, "can you spare some leftovers?" "I won't bother anyone." Robert hesitated but nodded. "Come with me," he said kindly, leading James to the back. He handed James a sandwich and a bottle of water. "Don't let them see you. They don't take kindly to folks like you." James felt a lump in his throat. "Thank you. Why do you work for people who treat others like this?" The old janitor sighed. "Not everyone's bad, but the higher-ups, they don't care. They only respect wealth." The breaking point as James was quietly eating, security approached him. "Hey, you again," the guard barked. "We told you to get out." "I was just..." Before he could finish, the guard grabbed his arm roughly and began dragging him out. Employees stood by, watching, laughing, whispering among themselves. Not one person intervened, except Robert, who protested weakly but was ignored. Humiliated, James was thrown onto the street. The receptionist, the executives, even the security, none of them had an ounce of compassion. And that's when James made his decision. The big reveal the very next morning. Caldwell Enterprises buzzed with excitement. A company-wide meeting had been called, and rumors were flying. No one knew why, but James had sent a message to every employee, demanding their presence in the main hall. As the clock struck 10, James walked onto the stage, clean-shaven in a sharp suit, looking every bit the billionaire CEO he was. Gasps filled the room. Employees murmured in shock, recognizing him from the previous day. Mr. Fletcher's face drained of color. The receptionist clutched her desk in disbelief. Security shuffled uncomfortably. James took a deep breath and began speaking. "Yesterday, I walked through these halls dressed as a homeless man. I was hungry. I was tired. I was in need. And what I experienced broke my heart." The room was silent. People avoided his gaze, guilt creeping up their faces. "I was met with disdain, with mockery. I was thrown out like trash. And the worst part, none of you even hesitated to do it." His voice cracked slightly, emotion seeping through. Except for one man, Robert. Robert looked down embarrassed as everyone turned to stare at him. Robert showed me kindness when no one else did. And that is what truly defines character. Not wealth, not status, but how you treat those who have nothing to offer you. James paused, letting his words sink in. Effective immediately. I am making some drastic changes. Gasps erupted again. I am firing every single executive who treated me with cruelty yesterday, he announced, turning towards Mr. Fletcher. That includes you, Mr. Fletcher. I built this company on principles of respect and dignity, and you have failed to uphold them. Fletcher stammered. Yes, sir, it was a misunderstanding. No, James interrupted. The only misunderstanding here is that you thought you were untouchable. James then turned to the receptionist and security. You, too, are dismissed. If you cannot treat people with basic human decency, you do not deserve to represent this company. Their faces fell in horror as the realization hit them. They had humiliated a man who owned everything they stood on. A new beginning. James took a deep breath, steadying himself. Robert, I want to personally thank you for your kindness. You are what this company should stand for. Tears welled in Robert's eyes. I was just doing what was right. James smiled. That's exactly why. Starting today, I am promoting you to the head of employee relations. We need people like you to guide us. The entire room burst into applause. Over the next few months, James worked tirelessly to change the company culture. He implemented strict policies against discrimination, held training on empathy and kindness, and personally ensured that every department upheld the values he had built his empire upon. And as for those who had been fired, they learned a painful lesson, that wealth and power can be temporary, but respect and kindness are what truly matter. The moral of the story, this story isn't just about a billionaire teaching his employees a lesson. It's about humanity. It's about remembering that every person, no matter their circumstances, deserves kindness and dignity. Because in the end, the true measure of success isn't how much money you make, but how you treat the people who have nothing to give you in return.